myself, but I welcomed everyone to the presentation about implementation of iiRDS in industry companies.
Okay, so now welcome from my side too. I'm Stephan Steurer. I'm the founder and CEO of ICMS, and I am doing projects in the field of content management and content delivery now for about more than 15 years. And the focus in our project is the methodical selection and implementation of such systems, which you need in the area of technical documentation. And there, one main part is the topic classification concepts and semantic models. One part could be or is iiRDS we are talking about today. And I also was a founding member of the iiRDS consortium in the beginning of such a working group some years ago now. Yeah. And so I'm happy to be here to make the presentation with Lena today for you with some use cases out of the practical works of our daily business.
Yes, and then some words about me. I'm Lena Wenner and I work together with Stephan at ICMS. And my daily job is to support our customers in the efficient content management and content delivery. And therefore, I'm the expert for developing concept together with our customers in the information services. And there I support a lot of projects that already delivered their contents with iiRDS, but also going beyond iiRDS, I support projects based on other semantic models. That is my daily basis. And then I would hand over to Stephan again to give a short introduction about the company.
Yeah, we have only one small slide for the company because I think it's more important to talk about iiRDS today. But what is important for us is that we are a system-related services, so we offer system-related services, but we are totally system independent, so we do not have a software for our own. So we have a lot of partners with technology and softwares. And due to many customer projects, we have such a deep system know-how, how to implement in the different software parts of such projects, topics like iiRDS or metadata or content. And so we are able to enable and to support customers in the whole entire project from the beginning of the consulting and on the orientation phase up to the system rollout and operating or support. But we do not have a software and we are not software engineers, so we are really services and consultants. And then I think we can start. A short overview about the agenda from today. We start with a short iiRDS basic introduction, but very small or very short because there was already one part from Ulrike some weeks ago. But I think it's important to talk some words because we are not sure who could take part in the first webinar. Then we go directly into the main part of our presentation. It's the steps in implementing iiRDS. And afterwards, we will show the topic preparation and application of metadata with small abstract examples. And then we demonstrate also some examples of iiRDS in practice. So using real industry use cases from some of our customers and projects. And in the end, we want to make a kind of sum up in the end of typical pitfalls and lessons learned in running projects or projects we already ended successfully. So one very short introduction. So if we have a look to iiRDS, iiRDS has two main parts. The first part is the so-called metadata model. So we have the content and the metadata. That means the properties of the content we want to have or to put in such iiRDS packages. And that's the reason we need the second part. It's the packaging format itself. So this is the kind of container where we can put the content. So we have the two parts, the content itself, the intelligent content, and because it's intelligent, we need this metadata information. And to illustrate the iiRDS, I think it's the best to use this suitcase. And on the next slide, I can show why. And because the suitcase is suitable for transport, to use things to transport. And the outer shape is fitting to the baggage regulations. So if you have some regulations how to transport things, you have the suitcase. And in the end, if you have such a badge on your suitcase where you start, from which airport you start and where do you go to and what's your name and your address, so you also have the necessary information, and so it's possible to identify for everybody whose suitcase it is. And that's the same you want to do with your data, your content. So you want to take your content on a kind of survey or on a journey, and then you need such package format, and it's iiRDS. It's a package format. It's a format to transport informations and intelligent information. And so if we have a look into the two main parts, the first part is the metadata. And if we now have only a very, very short abstract, for example, the metadata in iiRDS is a predefined metadata model. That means for the individual properties or metadata or information you want to have connected to your content, there are a kind of best practice classes you can use. For example, the information subject, so what information it is, or is it related to special document types, or the product relevant informations. Is it what product variant of your product is the description which is according to, and more, but there, if you're interested in to go deeper, there are the other webinar. For example, we took one class, the document type, and in such a class, we have the individual values. So for document type, there are in the standard iiRDS definition, we have some standard values like the operation instruction or the maintenance manual, but you are able to customize and to add individual values from your need. So the metadata model is a kind of framework you can use per default, per standard, but if it's not fitting to your whole story, to your whole needs, you can add in special levels of the metadata model your own values. Okay, then that's the part of the metadata. And the other part, also very, very important, is your content. And that's the reason we have to look inside such a container. And the container itself, it's a kind of zip archive. So it's a package from individual files. And the files could be whatever you need for your use case. For example, could be the PDF document. It could be a big monolithic PDF document of such a whole manual, and you can put it in such a container with your metadata. But it also could XML or a JSON file to fulfill use cases where the stakeholders or where the consumer of such a archive is a system itself, or it could be legacy documents like Word or Excel or something like that, depending on your use case, on your need.
Okay, so if there are no further questions to the short introduction, I would start with the next topic, steps in implementing iiRDS. So, Diego, do you already have any questions, or?
Diego, if we have some questions, you can interrupt or say.
Yes, I know. I don't see any questions in the chat, so apparently our audience doesn't have any question, and
Okay.
I don't have any either. But yeah, maybe we can point to the to Ulrike Parson's presentation. I think you will do it in a little bit too. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Sorry. Go ahead.
Thank you. So then I will start with the steps in implementing iiRDS. Therefore, we created a process that might lead you to the implementation of iiRDS. And in the next slides, I will go into every step, into every detail, So having a look at the first step, we identified the first most important step actually to identify and specify your use case to implement iiRDS. So why do you want to use iiRDS? So we defined some questions that you should ask yourself to start implementing. So at first you should identify the outcome. So what is the goal of the implementation and what could be the benefit? And also you should identify who's involved. So who benefits from the implementation and who has to work on it. So you have to see who does the work, and for the technical implementation, you have to define who is involved. And also you should identify the whole process or steps that has to be done during the implementation on the technical side. So which steps must take place in which system. And also you should also raise a question, maybe are there alternatives for the implementation of iiRDS? So if there's already an existing solution that works for you, you might also go another direction if you have a solution that is independent from iiRDS. And also, you should identify the pre and post conditions, and therefore you should ask yourself, it's connected to the goal, which is the condition before and after the implementation. And also what we found really important, write down acceptance criteria that should be fulfilled after the implementation. So in the end, in the review and testing phase, I will tell you that later, but we should have a look at the acceptance criteria again. And after you specified your use cases, it is important to clarify the technical basics, because on the one hand, you have the iiRDS producer, so where the content is stored, you want to produce iiRDS packages, and on the other hand, there should be a system, the target system, that is the iiRDS consumer. And starting on the left-hand side, for the iiRDS producer, it's mostly a content management system that should offer the possibility to generate iiRDS packages. But to be honest here with you, mostly the content management systems do not offer this solution out of the box. So they have to allow you the possibility to implement iiRDS actions. But this is a customization. You have to be aware that it's not just a click in your system. You have to implement it mostly by yourself or with partners, like we do it for other customers. And just to give you another example, there is an open source tool to generate iiRDS packages. You can upload your files there and you can download the iiRDS package, but it's not integrated into your software environment, but you could use it if you want to. And on the other hand, there's the iiRDS consumer. Mostly in our use cases, these are content delivery portals, and they often already offer the possibility to import iiRDS packages out of the box, but not every system does it. And you could also, if you have an individual target system, it might be a website in your company or an application, service app we often have, you can use iiRDS to deliver the content if there is no predefined format that the company or the other business unit might specify. And after identifying the technical basics, you should optimize the content and the metadata. Yeah, maybe I have to disappoint you there somehow, because there's no golden rule I can give you. It is completely dependent from the use case you identified in the first step. So you have to have a look at must the content be captured modular? Is it enough if it's a whole PDF that is delivered to the target system? Or what kind of information must be stored inside the content? And also, is the required metadata already stored to the content, or do we have to adjust the metadata? These are questions you have to raise in this step, and then you have to maybe change or adjust the content and the metadata, according to the requirements you analyzed. And for the next step, after you clarified the technical basics and you optimized your content and the metadata, the implementation phase starts. So there I have somehow a rule for you. We experience make good experience with our slogan, don't hesitate, just do it. After you started implementing and have the first iiRDS package coming from the source system, we found it really helpful to already go in the first step and review and test this implementation with the first steps, and just show that you are able to produce these iiRDS packages. Don't try to do everything together. Do it step by step. But also here you have to keep in mind that you need the technical know-how how to implement it, and on the other hand, you need implementation partners, maybe the software producers, or we as partners could do so. And so when it comes to review and testing, you should not just look at the result and say, oh yes, looks good. You should go back to the first step and have a look at what were your acceptance criteria. You should have written them down before, and afterwards you should accept your own criteria and see are all the requirements fulfilled. And if you find new requirements in this testing process, you should not just test them with this implementation phase. You should restart the whole process and write down the use cases and see, can we implement it with all the data we already have, or do we have to go through the process? This for the process. If there are any questions, you can raise them now. Diego, maybe you have some?
I have a question. Yes, you mentioned CMSs as content producers, but you said that right now iiRDS is not really widely supported. But can you maybe mention some names that are better suited for iiRDS than others?
So I can only speak from partner companies where we work with iiRDS. I think they are commonly known in the TECOM environment. So I can speak for Germany. It's from Quanos, Schema ST4 we are working with, or from Docufy Cosima. I don't know, Stefan, do you have any?
No, we have in one or two projects we have the, how is it called, Smart Media Creator from Expert Communications. And I think the typical software suppliers in the TCOM area where are involved in project have such a export possibility. But what is important, what we want to mention is it's because iiRDS is a framework and the ready to use concept or method, but not the fully solution. You always have to spend time and money to fulfill your needs. So it's not,
okay,
as Lena mentioned, it's the standard export. It's a standard export, but to define the export and the quality of the export, that is work. It's customizing.
Then you need some customization then. Okay. And you also mentioned that people can also look into alternatives. So do you mean like proprietary ontologies or taxonomies that are different from iiRDS?
I didn't mean the the metadata concept. I meant the exchange format. So as the iiRDS is a packaging format that should be like the suitcase Stephan showed, can be used if there's already an existing way. You maybe should not replace it if it works for you. If you do not have to use iiRDS if you have an existing solution, you do not have to replace it, especially when you create new interfaces between systems. For example, if you have a new content delivery portal, I mean, then it's a good way, I think, to implement iiRDS. I wanted to raise the awareness. If you have something that exists and works for you, then you do not have to replace it with iiRDS right now, right away.
Okay. Or for example, if the iiRDS producer and consumer system is from the same supplier or company and is a kind of part of a suite, they have existing transport systems or import-export files and definitions. And that's, for example, you do not need use iiRDS if you only have this connection. For example, if it's only one of your big picture and system environment, then you can have a look if it's possible to switch, but it's not the need to use it.
Okay. So if you're starting from scratch, then you recommend iiRDS, but if you already have something, then you need to evaluate whether it makes sense. Right.
It's really good to start into the project to work with this topic, metadata and content, and what I want to do and what I want to realize. For this is very, very good to make the first steps. And then you have, like the circle here means, you have to check it, you have to optimize it and make new decisions. Perhaps.
Okay, very good.
Okay. Then I think I can go on, right?
Yep.
Yep.
Yep. Let's continue.
For the next section of our presentation, we want to give you an insight about the preparation and application of metadata. And as in the process before, I can still say or say it again, it's dependent on the use case. So again, there is no golden path you can follow, but I want to make it visual in the next slide, because we give some abstract examples where you might find yourself that you fit this use case. And for the first use case, I have this woman and she uses an XML-based content management system. You might have already in your company as well. And they already work with metadata, but only on a basic level. And normally they only provide the documentation as a PDF, so quite basic, I would say. And they store this documentation in a documentation management system to have it internally presented. And in the future, they would like to have a content delivery portal that the customers can also download the documents from there. And then we could draw some conclusions from this small use case. On the one hand, there's only metadata needed on the document level. You do not need modular metadata for this use case. You only need them on the higher level. And to have a look at what iiRDS could be used for in the future, if there's no interface between the DMS and the CMS, you could use iiRDS to upload the documents to the internally used DMS. And in the future, if you establish the metadata at your documents, you make it possible for the customer to search for the documentations in your content delivery portal. So it makes it just easier. And here I have an example how this iiRDS package could look for this use case. You have the package format, what is our luggage here, and inside there is one PDF, or it could be multiple PDFs. And these PDFs only have the metadata for the document level. It says that it's an installation manual for my washing machine. And this would be in the content delivery portal later on, something that the customer could ask for. I want the whole documentation for this product, and that would be enough for this use case. And then I would hand over to Stephan for the second use case.
Okay, so we saw one abstract use case with content delivery of a whole document, and now we have a second one. It's a little bit more in detail. So the company also uses an XML-based content management system, but in this case, we already worked with a lot of metadata, or with metadata for example, because we have a variant logic, and we want to filter out the content using the content management logic and implementation. And for example, in this case, we called it the also called PI classification. So it's another classification concept, and it's also the basic concept where the iiRDS model, metadata model, is worked on. And this means PI stands for product and information related classifications. And in this case, we already have publication output in the format HTML, and it's modular, so we have individual topics. And the stakeholder or the need is that the service department need also now this content from the CMS for a special individual app. To show the content for individual service use cases. And the exchange is up to now unclear, and so we have to make the decision. And if we now have a look into the conclusion, that in this company we already have an understanding for complex metadata in the team, because they already use metadata for content management. Up to now, not for content delivery, but for content management, and that's very important, so that we have people in the project team where we can discuss about this topic. The second one is that the content is already written modular and used modular for HTML applications or output, and so we can also retrieve this information modular and not monolithic like the use case one with the whole PDF document. And the last one is that iiRDS can be used perfectly for exchange format for this application, because the specification of the content type and metadata the application needs is fulfilled by the framework of iiRDS. So we can put in the metadata into the metadata concept we show in the first basic introduction, and we can put inside of the container our content. And then if we have now a look in the iiRDS package, it's very similar like the first one, but the difference is that now we have not the whole document or manual in one PDF or in more PDFs. We have such chunks or HTML pages, so the individual topics or modules of the CMS, of the authoring system, are used as individual content pages. So we have individual HTML packages, and each individual HTML file has their own metadata. And for example, the first one is for the product variant car AB2, and is the information subject about the topic of cleaning the component of the seat, for example. And it's of topic type tasks, that we know it's a task and not a description. So that is a procedure. And the other one is for the same product, but for an inside of the product hierarchy for another component, for example, for the radio and installing the radio. but it's also a task, so also a procedure to introduce the customer to do any special things with this component.
Okay, so that would be it for the use cases. And yeah, Diego, do you have any questions?
Can I interrupt you for a second? Yes. So Stephan, so first of all, I'm used to working in a CMS where basically I use metadata to first filter the content and then publish it. But in the example that you were showing with modular content with iiRDS metadata, I guess it works the other way around. So you publish everything, and then you filter afterwards. So it will be the app that does the filtering. Is that correct?
So in
yeah,
case,
Lena?
I just want to raise the thing in the first use case. There's no application that filters out. You only want to establish a content delivery portal where the customers can download this PDF. So only this PDF will be available in the content delivery portal. There's no modular content, so there's no filtering done. It's just the PDF as we find it in the content management system. The same will be in the content delivery portal.
Yeah. So I think I didn't explain myself correctly. So in the example that Stephan was making, so the second one with modular content, it is not the CMS that filters and then publishes content, but the CMS publishes all the content, and then the filtering is done outside of the CMS by the app.
Yeah, that could be, I think, in one or two of our customer-specific use cases we show afterwards. We have some screenshots, but you can do both. It's depending on the use case, on the used iiRDS consumer, but you can do both. You can say, okay, the logic of filtering the content, and I make packages individual for a special variant, product variant. I want to filter inside of the CMS and make a package which is consistent for one individual product variant and a special use case or component. But you also can publish the whole variants as a kind of collection with the individual metadata. And then the content delivery portal has the search functionality and the filter logic to show the individual right content to the user, right?
Okay. And something else I wanted to ask, but so if you need to manage metadata at topic level for, well, at the chunk level, that increases the amount of time that we spend on managing metadata. That's as opposed to I don't know, just managing metadata at the document level, for example.
Yeah, that's one of our point in the last slide in our Fazit or sum up, that right the moment most of the companies do not have enough metadata information to realize this needs on the side of the delivery. That's a gap, and this gap you have to discuss where you can or need to add this metadata or not. Perhaps we can show some examples or in the sum up in the last slide afterwards.
Okay, very good. I'm not receiving any questions from our guests. I'm a bit surprised. So if you are attending and you want to ask Lena and Stephan something, please do so in the chat.
And make a test if it's working.
Yes.
Yeah, I can see you. Yeah.
Okay. So we can send. Okay, so we come to our last main part, the industry use cases. So up to now we have theory and the basics, but I think it's necessary. And so we start with the use cases from our customers, and Lena can start with the first one.
Yes, exactly. So our first customer is energy, and yeah, in the technical writing business unit, they have a special situation. They have more than one producer of content, so they have at least 2 XML-based content management systems, and they already work with metadata to filter the content in CMS. So they, in the different systems, use metadata, and they are aware how to use metadata. And the individual content management systems, they work for their use cases, because in the different content management systems, they produce different document types. For example, they have the installation manual in a different system than the maintenance manual. And they want to keep the content management system as they are, because they fulfill their needs and they like to work with all of the different systems. And mostly the output format is just a PDF, just a monolithic whole document. But in the future, the business unit decided that they want to establish a content delivery solution to deliver consistent documents on all the documentations to other business units, other systems used the whole energy equipment. But it should be independent from the source system. So they want to be consistent inside the whole business unit. And to reach this goal, they implemented a solution together with us, where they have these 2 CMS I was talking about, and also other sources. And they deliver, as they used to do before, the PDF, sometimes HTML, sometimes it's graphics. They deliver it to our so-called delivery solution, where we create iiRDS packages for other business units, but consistently, where we kind of collect all the different data and deliver them all together to the business units. And if we have a look at this into more detail, you find the steps from the abstract slide before here. You have the different CMS, you have the 2 PDF coming from the different source systems, and you have different metadata. So here you have the yellow tag, here you have the gray tag, and the other business units need to know that they all belong to the same project. For example, if they have a construction where they build new gas turbines, for example, they want to deliver everything coming from the different source systems together. And we have a delivery solution where we have 2 systems involved. The one is Plusmeta, and the other one is an ontology tool. It's MetaFacts, and they, in combination, produce iiRDS packages with consistent metadata, so that other business units can raise the request, please give me all documents for my project. And then we deliver iiRDS packages to the other systems or other business units if they raise this question. And the main or most important advantage we see is that the metadata is not coming from the different sources, but it's consistent, and all the other business units do not have to understand the metadata logics from all the other systems. We kind of translate it so that the other business units speak the same language. This is the first use case, and I would hand over to Stephan for the second one.
Okay, in the second one, we also have an XML-based CMS system, and the metadata and the content is already modular, and the content has already metadata for other content delivery purposes. And most of the documents are already published in HTML, modular, or as PDF documents, as whole documents. And the company wanted to have a content delivery solution to provide the documentation to other business units. The first step was to publish internal, not external, because to get the knowledge inside of the company. But there was also, or is also, another service department. They need the content modular for web shop and also for an application. And so there, the solution was that in the content management makes the package. It's a little bit like you asked before, Diego. In this iiRDS package, there's a lot of information, not the individual use case package and the package for the special touch point. It's a kind of collection. And inside of the next system, the content delivery portal system knows now for each stakeholder and each use case what's the right thing. For example, the other business units, they have web access for the users. It's a normal GUI where they can search for content and they get it presented by by the web GUI. Or the web shop, it's another system connected to the delivery. So it's a machine readable connection. It's an API interface where the content is getting directly as JSON, and also the chatbot, for example, or the service application need the content as XML, not as HTML or PDF. And so there, iiRDS is used for the first party, for the CMS to the CTP, but the use case, the knowledge is done by the next system, by this content delivery portal. And in the next slide, we have, this was the abstract slide, this is the individual slide. So on the left side, we have the individual modules like this ICMS, it's a special event, and for the event we have the content and the metadata. And then in the whole collection, we see it in the middle, it's the web GUI. It's a search for show me all events you have, and then you get a list of hits, the individual events. And that's the answer to your question. On the left side, you see the typical facets. You also know from web shops or even e-commerce shops where you can set the filter criteria to filter down the list of possible events, right? And the second part was the machine readable connection. And so the same package, the same content from the CMS is getting to the delivery portal, but the response to the stakeholder, to the audience, is individual. It's a kind of question. For example, I need for this error code. So he's not searching in the web GUI because it's not a person, it's another system. It's a kind of API, and the parameter is a special error code. And the system looks inside of the database and get back the content and the spare part, especially you need for fulfill this repair instruction, for example, and it's getting in machine readable format JSON, and so the web shop can or makes the visualization of this use case.
Okay.
And now we have the last one regarding to the time. I think we are nearly just in time.
Yes, coming to the last use case, it's from Doppelmayr Ropeways. They already work like the last use case with an XML-based CMS, and they already work with complex metadata to filter the content in the content management system. And in the end, they already provide their documentation with HTML and PDF, so they have modular content. And there was a request coming from the service department that they need modular content from the CMS for their application. They have a service application. And our solution together with Doppelmayr Ropeways is quite linear, as you see here. We have the content management system, then we import iiRDS packages coming from the CMS to our content delivery portal. And here the most interesting part in this project happens, because we restructure the content using the metadata coming from the content management system. And we restructure the content regarding to the needs of the service application. And after that, we deliver other iiRDS packages to the application. So this is a different package from this one. It's not the same. It's, the content itself is different. And having a look at it into more detail, in the CMS, we have the whole structure. So we have this whole document. You might know the structure from your documents. And we deliver the whole structure, but modular, to the content delivery portal with iiRDS packages. And we store them here. And if the customer or someone in the application raises a request, for example, give me the instruction for a specific task and a specific component, we deliver or we generate new iiRDS packages, not this whole monolithic iiRDS packages, but smaller ones that fulfill this request. And then we deliver the restructured iiRDS package, and they can present this documentation in their application. And last use case, and I don't know if there are any questions, but otherwise we would come to typical pitfalls and lessons learned.
Yeah, I still cannot see any questions from the audience, which leads me to think that something is going wrong with the chat, because I assume that someone would have questions by now. But I'd say, well, please continue and finish your presentation.
Okay, I think if the question or the chat functionality is not there, but there are questions, we can, I don't know, we have, for example, afterwards, we have the email address of the contact or about Diego, so we have it. So to sum up, we have typical pitfalls.
Sorry, Stephan?
Yeah.
Sorry, Stephan. We have actually one question here from a participant. Is it difficult to extend an implemented CMS to iiRDS or make it fit, or does it have to be taken into account during implementation?
We had this topic before. There are kind of demonstrator or first party implementations where we can, or you can set on or make your individual exports. So it's depending on the supplier. It's not a really big thing. The technical basic or framework is there, but the main part is, and this is one of the next topics rows I have now on this slide, is that the content must fit to your needs. So it's not a big thing, but you have, depending on the system, you have to make some efforts. If you're interested in, you can also send us the question that we have some software depending answers which system you use, and there perhaps we can say if it's a little bit more or if it's easier. So one main thing we want to mention is that the very important thing is that the use cases and the stakeholders must be defined sufficiently. So if it's not defined sufficiently, then it's very hard that you are not able to create added value. And if you do not really know the needs of your target audience, you cannot do the project. You cannot do only iiRDS because you want to do iiRDS, for example. You really need the benefits you want to show. The next one is, that's a little bit the thing we discussed before, the content and the metadata do not fit the needs. That's the next possible pitfall. So we saw all on our slides, on the left side the CMS, on the right side the stakeholder and the use case we want to realize. If you have such a complex idea or use case on the right side, and on the left side you only have monolithic documents, but you want to deliver for an chatbot or service app for our example of Doppelmayr, for the individual component, for the individual plant, you need the information, but you have only a big manual as PDF, so you're not able to realize and fulfill the story you want to realize. And that's a little bit the answer you asked, Diego. So yeah, in most cases you have to make content engineering and metadata engineering and put some more content or structure on the left side in your CMS or in your data. The next thing is a little bit the political or strategy thing, that if you have more than one department in your company, this delivery projects mostly are department integrated projects. So you have to work together and you have to want to work together, yeah, and that not only the islands of knowledge are be part of one use case, but often the whole use case need to take part, that every department give in their knowledge and their manpower and their systems. So that is also a very, very important thing, that if you want to realize such a big story, everybody has to be involved and has to be part of the project. So because then at the end you do not have consistent or end-to-end data, which is you need to realize. And the last one, that's kind like the question, is that the technical implementation concepts of producer and consumer systems, so on the CMS or content delivery, do not fit per default. They all have a kind of default export or import, but because it's a big IT environment you have in your company, you have to make such whole functional pragmatic overall solution from the export. Often you have a kind of middleware. You see on our screens there are middleware software where you make a kind of another generation of such iiRDS systems or additional filter logic or something like that. So important is that the standard is only a method or a framework where you can do your first steps and your first ideas, but for the productive project and the productive realization of this main chain of content, you have to integrate the systems, the individual systems, and that therefore you need the know-how to do that. Okay. So
good. So
time we have.
Yeah, this would have been the time for the questions, but actually we ran out of time. So maybe we can tell our audience where they can reach you or where they can find more information about iiRDS.
Yeah, you can
I see.
Contact here. Otherwise, you can also just find us on the website and contact us. Yeah, right there, or find information you are searching for.
Okay. And I think you can also find information on iirds.org, if I'm not mistaken. And yeah, again, if you try to search on YouTube for iiRDS, there should be some interesting videos that you can watch.
Right.
Okay. So I would like to thank our presenters for today. It was an interesting presentation, and I have some more questions that I didn't have time to ask. And I hope to see you another time. And have a nice day.
Okay, thanks, everybody. Have a nice weekend. Yeah, bye.